Glad to see that you accepted to speak today. Good seeing you.
Sure, for sure. Nice to see you as well.
We're excited about your presentation, Morgan, and we're waiting. Let's wait about 5 minutes or so. It's 1 minute to four. Let's wait till just a few minutes after four, get more people to sign on, if that's okay with you, Morgan. Do you have a um, are you is your time okay as far as being available for the full period?
Yeah, how long do you think? I mean,
Oh,
how long do you
we'll be done by 5 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock here. We'll be done by five.
Sounds perfect. Sounds perfect to me.
Yeah. Just want to wait a few minutes. Some people more people will be joining us. But when you do start your presentation, I'm going to let Dr. Pata, your mentor, Professor Dr. Pata Bautista, introduce you. But when you do start your presentation, before you start getting slides, tell us a little bit about your background and your major and what year you're in when you plan to graduate. Okay. Let's wait a few more minutes. hmm Mastercard Data Challenge. Yes. I heard you guys did very, very well. This is okay. Uh, Dr. Pata, you still want to wait a couple minutes, or tell me when we should begin, Dr. Pata?
Yeah, I think we can start, right?
Oh, okay. Well, people will be coming as we talk. Welcome, everybody. I'm really pleased that you have joined us, those of you that have joined us today. And I really want to thank our speaker, Morgan Massai, for agreeing to uh, substitute so quickly because we had a change in program. Dr. Mativa was called away for another meeting, and she was supposed to speak today, but Morgan Massai agreed and will talk to us. I'm going to have Dr. Pater Bautista introduce him, but before we do that, I just want to say our students, our undergraduate students and graduate students that are working with our data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, research and learning cluster are doing fantastic, fantastic things. They're doing it basically starting from scratch and ending up by the end of the semester with very interesting and outstanding results. But what I really want to emphasize to them and to everybody that, hey, you are just at the ground floor of something that's even going to be more amazing than what you have already. Let me see. 7 years ago, I guess I got to measure that. We just started really pushing into large language models. We only had one large language model back then. And I guess we refer to it as a tiny language model. But anyway, um, it took us a long time to even do that because uh, these language models depend upon lots and lots and lots of data, and they depend upon lots of computing power. And we just didn't have it at the time. But then on board comes a new wave in architecture. We move away from being a von Neumann architecture, 70 years of that, to becoming a CPU GPU architecture, graphics we can recognize. And now, 7 years later, Jensen Huang has announced even a more amazing architecture. CPUs, GPUs, and QPUs all working together, governed by AI in a very, very interesting environment. So, what I'm saying to our undergraduates and our graduate students and our faculty, that if you thought in this 7 years things boomed and we got into these big large language models, things will be ballistic and it will make a definite, huge impact, not only on computer science education, but also on the entire curriculum in higher education. And for our students engaged in this, you're at the ground floor and you're going to be at the cutting edge when you go out to industry, no matter what your degree is in. As long as you have these tools with you, you will be at the cutting edge in the workforce. So we're very proud of our students and our faculty that are engaged in this right now because, you know, um, AI and these tools are not meant to replace, but they're meant to augment and accelerate traditional methods of research. So, Dr. Bautista, would you go ahead and introduce our speaker, your mentee?
Yeah, hello everyone. Today we have Massai Morgan, who is part of the team of the students who has been competing for the Mastercard Data Challenge. So they are CDS student, computational data science, no students, researchers who are actually a program, which is a program have been run by the Doctoral Law Initiative. And that program, every semester we have undergrad students doing research with faculty members who are interested in data science, AI, machine learning. And then they also use this opportunity um, this semester to be able to compete in this Mastercard Data Challenge, which is the second year they are running this challenge, which I know because I'm part also the AUC Data Science Initiative. And then they
Dr. Para, what is the AUC Data Science Initiative?
AUC Data Science Initiatives is a program led by some HBCU universities. And then
In Atlanta, right? In Atlanta?
yes.
Uh-huh.
Then they share this Mastercard Data Challenge with people who are being active in the consortium they have. Um, and I say why not we do this while they are learning also how to do research. So they actually was Morgan have the idea of okay, I want to focus on education metrics using the inclusive growth data from Mastercard. And then he was looking into other factors or more digging inside of the data. Now he has today some insights of how to improve those metrics. Also, he was using external data added to this data. So no say more. So now Masai Morgan can start presenting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, for sure. Thank you, Dr. Batista, for that introduction. Good afternoon to you all. I am Massai Morgan, a third-year Computer Information Systems transfer student from PG County, Maryland. And today I will be sharing with you all my team's findings from the Mastercard Data Challenge. Numbers never lie, or that's what we've always been told to believe. But is that always the truth? Again, I want to say good afternoon to you all. And this is the Mastercard entitled Education Data Insights for Inclusive Growth in Washington.
Okay, yo, let's go.
Will everybody please mute their microphones? Dr. Potter, are you able to mute? Okay. Go ahead, Morgan.
Oh, well, good. So at first, when looking at this data set, we will say, I very much so was overwhelmed. All these numbers, vibrant colors, like what are we supposed to do with all this data? First thing that we noticed, though, was in one of the DC neighborhoods, they lost 82% of their early education enrollment in just 5 years, and the inclusive growth score never captured it. So to kind of offer some context for that, the early education enrollment stat is basically just measuring the amount of people, the amount of young kids under the age of 5 that are enrolled in pre-K programs and stuff like that. And when I say terms like track, that's just the area within Washington, DC. So looking at this problem, this is what brought us to our problem statement. While inclusive growth scores provide a comprehensive view of community development, they may not fully capture the multidimensional impact of education. Differences in educational access, quality, outcomes can substantially influence a track's ability to achieve equitable growth. Understanding how education metrics align or fail to align with inclusive growth indicators is essential for developing policies that address structural inequality. And that's what led us to our research questions of to what extent does education-related indicators predict inclusive growth scores across the Washington, D.C. tracks? Which educational factors show the strongest relationship with inclusive growth? And does the current inclusive growth score adequately reflect educational equity across neighborhoods? And how might integrating education-specific measures enhance the accuracy of inclusive growth assessments and inform policies to promote equitable economic development? All right, so this next slide, provides some context to the community behind those educational trends. So the population is approximately 672,000 with a median age of 35. The median income is approximately 106,000. However, the poverty remains at 14.5%, indicating significant income inequality. In terms of education, early education enrollment across the community is approximately 37.8%. The key takeaway is that even in a wealthy, well-educated community, there are still inequities that directly affect early education access. Strengthening support in areas like Track 9803 is crucial to ensuring that every neighborhood benefits equally from educational growth. Here on the left side, we can see early education enrollment trends from 2017 to 2024. The red line represents our target tracks, areas with schools and high schools in that area, and the blue line shows the other tracks. Notice how after 2020, the red line rises much faster, meaning the target track saw a big increase in early education enrollment, almost tripling their base numbers. In contrast, the blue line for other tracks shows only a small, steady climb for around 31% to 37%. Now, on the right side, we have track 09803 highlighted in red. You can see it dropped sharply from about 78% in 2017 down to around 6% in 2022, before recovering slightly in 2024. That's approximately an 80% decline, showing major fluctuation in early education enrollment. So overall, while most target tracks are improving, this particular track stands out as a clear warning sign, and it shows that local challenges can still hold back overall progress. So this heat map breaks down the performance of each target census tract across key metrics, including overall inclusive growth scores, percentiles, growth, and inclusion. The tracks highlighted in red particularly 9803, 7806, and 7304, are where we see critical concerns. Track 9803, which includes Blue High School, shows the lowest percentile overall, just a 0.9. We cross-check with educational data. Blue also has the lowest graduation rate in the city and high chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is when a student misses over 10 days of school, regardless if it's unexcused or excused. This correlation reinforces how educational barriers directly reflect in low inclusive outcomes. Track 7806 has the lowest inclusive growth score, but interestingly, has an education score of 71. That contrast highlights the fact that while tracks may have high or stronger early learning access, other challenges such as economic stability or community investment are holding back overall growth. And in track 7601, we have a moderate inclusive growth score of 46, but graduation rate of just 62.5. Again, it's a reminder that education-specific outcomes don't always perfectly align with broad inclusive scores. Although this visualization helps us see where students and neighborhoods may be left behind, even when inclusive growth metrics suggest moderate progress, it reinforces that future interventions might need to target education-focused variables more directly if we want to close inclusive gaps effectively. To the radar map. Here we're looking at a radar chart. This compares target census tracts to other target tracts across the 5 dimensions of the Mastercard's inclusive growth framework. Uses economy, place, inclusion, growth, and community. What stands out for us is how similar the two groups are and how they perform across all these dimensions. Even though the target tracks are often the focus for improvement, the scores don't differ drastically from the other tracks in the city. This tells us that geographical designation alone is not the main driver of disparities. It suggests that the issues impacting inclusion, especially when it comes to education, may be more deeply tied to the local social factors like access to quality schools, neighborhood investment, or long-term community resources, rather than simply where the track is located. So while inclusive growth scores capture broad measures of opportunity, we're learning that they may not fully explain what's happening at school or at a neighborhood level. So after identifying which tracks are struggling the most, like 9803 and 7806, we wanted to understand the patterns behind those numbers. This slide shows results from our unsupervised machine learning clustering analysis. We used PCA, or principal component analysis, to group census tracts that share similar characteristics like income, housing, and education. Each dot represents a tract, and together they form 2 clear-cut clusters, the yellow group on the left and the blue group on the right. These clusters are based on geography. They're based purely on patterns and data. So that means the tracts that behave similar get grouped together, even if they're not near each other. So we have 2 main clusters. Cluster 0, which includes 177 tracks, and including our 15 target tracks with an average performance of about 50.25. Cluster 1 includes 34 tracks averaging at 49.74. Now, although these averages are close, the difference comes from what's driving the numbers. Cluster 0 represents an economic mobility profile. Areas are improving with higher housing stability, growing income, and stronger early education enrollment. Cluster 1 represents amenity-rich urban profile. Areas already well developed with high income levels, strong labor engagement, and better park access. And for context, Cluster 1 may have a lot more of because it's in DC, it may have a lot more of the governmental workers. You have more Smithsonian national parks in that area. So that generally is what we saw as the reason to why they clustered in that area together. You'll notice some traits like personal income see them show up in both clusters. That's where the percentages matter the most. Cluster 0's income might be slightly above average, showing steady growth, while Cluster 1 is much higher, showing established prosperity. So even with similar traits, the strength and meaning behind them are different. But what really stands out for us was track 9803, the diamond near the bottom of the target tracks cluster. Its performance is only 26, which is far below the rest. This shows data isn't always black and white. Numbers can show us something's off, but they don't always tell us why. Based on how other tracks in this cluster perform, 9803 should be around a score of 50, just like the rest. That the fact that it's nearly half the value tells us something deeper is happening, maybe underinvestment, infrastructure issues, or community factors that the data set doesn't capture. So this outlier is significant because it highlights the gap between what the data predicts and what is actually happening on the ground. Overall, this analysis shows that not all success looks the same, and Track 9803 reminds us that the progress can be uneven and that sometimes understanding a community means looking beyond the data itself. And now that you've heard the issue, here's how our 4-step plan to fix it. So first, we plan to incorporate various educational metrics, chronic absenteeism, graduation rates, post-secondary enrollment as additional variables in the IGS framework. Then we plan to develop a weighted educational index reflecting both access and outcomes. And then we plan to collaborate with local agencies to collect and standardize our data, making sure that it's uniform to what's actually happening in Washington, D.C. For phase 2, we plan to map the tracks where inclusive growth scores are high, but educational performance is low. Then we plan to analyze the patterns by wards, school districts, or socioeconomic status. Then we plan to prioritize the neighborhoods with the largest growth education gap for targeted interventions. And this is where we plan in phase 3 to actually implement the solutions. So we address absenteeism by possibly expanding transportation access, family engagement, possibly utilizing an attendance incentive program. We also plan to boost graduation rates by providing mentoring, tutoring, and early warning systems for at-risk students. We also plan to increase post-secondary engagement or enrollment by partnering with local colleges to strengthen on their dual enrollment programs and different various scholarship opportunities. We also plan to reintroduce or revise the trade and technical programs in high school just to multiply the successful pathways for high school students. In phase 4, we plan to evaluate the yearly progress and update the model with new education and workforce data. Then we plan to publish it, publishing the reports highlighting which policies or programs are most effective. Then we plan to recommend the adoption to various cities and states across the nation. In conclusion, going back over the presentation, the inclusive growth score fails to capture severe educational crises. In Track 9803, 82% of the early education enrollment collapsed undetected, revealing a fundamental blind spot in the current assessments methods. There are 3 tracks in critical need with performance gaps over 50%. We also learned that early education enrollment, graduation rates, and chronic absenteeism are strong predictors of inclusive growth, and that geographic designation alone does not determine outcomes. Finally, we created a 4-phase strategic roadmap to integrate education-specific measurements into inclusive growth score, enabling early detection of crises and targeted intervention. Overall, the goal is to enhance IGS framework, real-time monitoring, and make equitable policy decisions. And I would like to thank you all for giving this a listen. I appreciate your time and attention.
Very, very nice. Thank you, Morgan. Let me turn my camera on here. I have a couple questions, but I'd like to leave it for Dr. Pada to open it for our participants first before I ask my questions. I have a couple of thoughts. Go ahead, Dr. Pada.
No, well, anyone have any question for Morgan? He can go back to the slides, maybe some slide catch your attention or something.
Well,
And
uh,
I have a question in the chat. Do you want?
anyone coming up with questions? Well, probably while they're thinking about the question, let me raise a couple points. This very, very interesting presentation. it, it is another aspect of something that we were involved in about 30 years ago. Let's reflect on this a moment. About 30 years ago, the National Science Foundation had this major program, multi-million-dollar program to help. It was called the Systemic. It was called the Systemic School District Initiative, which meant that school districts across the country could compete with propose to the National Science Foundation to take up issues that are involved in either elementary or secondary education in the school district. So at that time, I was heavily involved on the board of advisors for the Houston Independent School District, which and the Houston Independent School District was 26.9% African American and 39% Hispanic or Latino, first generation students. Okay. And we proposed to the National Science Foundation and were successful, got a major grant to address the following issue. And I'm bringing this up because it's a little different aspect than what you're looking at, but I'm trying to pull the two together, what you're looking at and what we knew back then. So there was a major survey done about the Houston Independent School District, and we discovered we were looking at math scores, and we had broken down by ethnic groups. So the ethnic groups were African American, Latino was the second one. Third one was Southeast, well, Asian, and the fourth were Anglos, okay, white. What was very interesting, we were looking at the math scores. In Texas, there are annual state exams. And from the beginning, wherever it began, pre-K, K, whatever, through the fifth grade, the success rate of each of those ethnic groups was more or less the same. Not about 95%, very high. Okay, up through the fifth grade. And after the fifth grade, guess what? You know, so fifth grade is considered up the elementary, and middle school there was sixth, seventh, eighth. Okay. Anyway, there was a huge drop in success rates after the fifth grade, huge drop in success rates in the Latino group and the African American group. But the Anglo and the Asian groups stayed the same, more or less, on through the 12th grade. And I'm reflecting on what you're looking at, and it kind of rings bells to me. Did any of this come up looking at the various grade levels when you were investigating this?
You said when looking at which levels?
Uh, you know, going through elementary school versus middle school versus high school with different groups. You see, I'm
So,
following the presentation. Go ahead. Go ahead.
so for us, we were looking mostly at the educational measurements of high schoolers. So what we saw was like it's kind of similar in an aspect to what you were talking about, but we were looking at kind of we were using Mastercard's data set and seeing where they had inclusive growth scores of high numbers of representing areas that are better off than other areas. And we looked into those areas, and some of the times they would have like their public school in that area would be terrible. Like they'd have the worst graduation rate in the city. Like particularly with Ballou High School, like the inclusive growth score isn't correctly, it wouldn't make you think that, oh, their high school is at like the worst in the city. Like you look at their inclusive growth score and say, okay, they have to have a good high school. But some of the things that we also noticed was kind of the fact that in DC, the way the public school system works is like it has a public school in each ward, and for you to every every student within that ward is guaranteed admission to that school. However, you can apply through the DC lottery to any other school in any other ward just based on what school you want to go to. So often, a lot of times, what will happen is students within a particular ward, like let's say like Ward 7, right? They want to go to a better school, knowing that their Ward 7 school isn't necessarily the best. However, the way that the DC lottery will play out, they end up having to go to the Ward 7 school, or unless they're oftentimes playing sports or just have a higher academic profile.
See, many of these things that you mentioned at the high school level came into play when we started. So here was the thing: why, from grade one or grade one through grade five, these ethnic groups each are successful more or less at the same rate, relatively. I'm talking about the math test, the annual state math test, around very high 90% level, right? It's amazing, why so? And then why so? After that, you get into the middle school and the high school, there's a drastic drop in the success rate for African Americans and Hispanics. And, some of the stuff that you're talking about with your study is exactly some of this thing, the exact same things which caused this huge drop. I mean, we were successful in getting a major National Science Foundation grant, 25 million, to do a district-wide systemic initiative on middle school mathematics. Okay. That involved industry, local industry, the community. Had to build all kinds of coalitions that involved parents and grandparents, because so much of the influence, with these first generation families and many of them immigrants, depended upon grandparents working with the children, parents. So yes, this is very, very interesting. I think what you're looking at is extremely important and could be easily replicated in other areas, of course. And that's what the value is of data science. It's the model you create and the transferability of that model. Okay. And that's what I find extremely interesting. So I don't know, this is something to think about as you go further in this. You might want to look at, this type of breakdown and see, what are the root causes here of this, because this is it's a national tragedy that our high school graduates, like only 39% of our high school graduates are prepared for STEM education in college. So yeah, so you can see, compared to students in Asian countries, it's very different. Much Asian countries have a much higher success rate. And so what causes that? We know a lot about this now, but I think it also impacts what you all are looking at. A beautiful presentation, Morgan. I really appreciate your presentation. So, what got you interested in this?
For me, I'm from Maryland, so I live in the Maryland area, and one of the things that's always kind of stood out to me, I went to a private school, so I was fortunate enough to go to get a very good education in high school, but like a lot of my friends that I didn't go to school with, like their education, they went to the public schools in PG County, and PG County public schools aren't very good as well. Like, and I know these guys, and they're pretty intelligent, like, and it's like I know how smart you are, but I also know the education that the tools that are being put in front of you. So kind of understanding like not that because I go to a private school, I'm better than you or anything of that nature. Like I'm not better. There's probably 10 times smarter kids in public schools than I am. However, I know that the opportunities and resources that I'm exposed to allow me to get to where I am today. And understanding that is kind of what tied my interest into just understanding what resources or the lack of resources that students in the DC public system, the DC public school system are getting or not getting.
Very interesting. You see, again, there's the look at the difference. Look at the difference. You see. Um, where do you want to go? What do you want to do after graduation? What are you interested in?
Well, so my original plan before this year, really, I was going to do data analytics within sports. So probably working within a sports team, doing data analytics in that manner. But as the year has kind of gone on, my scholarship program, I'm a PlayStation career pathway scholar. So a lot of the opportunities that I've seen come my way for this year's internship have been with PlayStation and doing data analytics and business intelligence with them. So that's probably if depending on what my internship this summer looks like, if it's whatever the role in PlayStation or with the NBA Foundation, I feel like that will kind of determine whether I work in sports or I'm working with PlayStation for after my senior year.
So there's another opportunity for you, by the way, and Dr. Potter, I hope can help you. Sandia has some internships, Sandia National Labs for Data Science. And
Mhm.
given the background that you've developed, you ought to think seriously about that possibility at Sandia National Labs in data
Sure.
science for the summer. Dr. Potter, we can talk about this if, uh, and give you a link. But tremendous opportunity. This is where, uh, this is one of the highest paying jobs out there today because we need to accelerate and augment traditional methods of research. And these tools that you're talking about is what is, and the power of the computing that we have now are what going to make a difference. So anyway, let's go back. Any questions from the participants? Anyone? We have a lot. Go ahead. Um, yeah. Anyone? Do we have some questions? Are there any in chat, Dr. Para?
No, no questions.
Okay.
I guess I could ask Malin.
Go ahead, Dr. Maurice.
So, the one of the questions that's is always out there is what other kinds of data that might be helpful in explaining and helping the model be help the model. What other kind of data might you look for that can help the model do a better job?
So for this, like you said, there is various amount of data points that you could look at. Um, but some other thing that was kind of crossing my mind when looking at this was kind of understanding what kids ranging in that high school age, like 15, 19, 14 to 19, like what are they doing? Right. So looking at possibly community engagement data is like, okay, how many people are coming to the community center? Looking at crime data. So like what percentage of the crime is done by students in the high school range. So kind of those things I feel like all tie in specifically with like the chronic absenteeism. That'll kind of help you figuring out like, okay, if students aren't going to school, what other things are they doing when they're not at school? And then that'll also help tie into figuring out why they aren't at school and what ways you can keep them in school and then possibly in turn going up and strengthening your graduation rates and your post-secondary engagement just by, you know, focusing in on getting those students in school in the first place.
Yeah, or yes, one of the hardest things is simply getting the data. One of the things that, I would always be interested in is actual feedback from students, any kind of surveys or interviews that, that are available. That certainly will help because, like you're saying, that's what they're doing. But the question is, why are they doing that? And, that might be able to help explain what's going on as well. And also that will be help in terms of helping create a solution to the problem.
For sure.
That will be
For sure.
next step to add some survey data that will augment it of, understanding why of this declining in educational metrics. Yeah, see, that's what he's planning to do. We planning the group in case they go to the final steps on the final competition as well. But yeah, so for them be able to compare apples to apples, they were looking into the census tract data, but they can look also at state level or no country state, state. But they, going more into the census tract level is more, I guess, difficult to get more data because it's like they were looking into educational metrics, graduation rates, absenteeism. They only find data for, certain tracks, but not all of them. Because,
Can,
of course, there are no high schools everywhere. So,
yeah, yeah. Can you get into zip codes or not?
they use census tract, which is
That's
more
yeah. Oh, okay.
uh,
Okay. Uh-huh.
specific to neighbors. Yeah.
Are you okay, Dr. Maurice?
Yes. Yeah. Just try and think and hope for what's next down the road. Like I said, the one maybe one question is there a way you can find other lookalikes like Dr. Batsu was saying, a lot of lookalikes that kind of look the same, and so that data can line up, so you can maybe get a broader swath of data if you're looking at more than just one region. But that's really hard to get the data to look the same. So, but that's interesting if you could find areas, other areas, see if the data correlates.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Dr. Potter. Uh-huh.
Oh no, I said they will be looking in, like you say, Maurice, in other data, and then they're gonna have some results. They may be Morgan or the team can present next semester. What's the other results they got? Because this is like working in progress.
Yeah. Well, Morgan, questions, any questions at all from the participants? Are we okay? Well, if not, I just want to thank you, Morgan. Excellent presentation. Keep working on it. Keep up the good work you're doing. This is fantastic. It lays out a tremendous future for you, by the way. Don't forget that. It's this is something very much at cutting edge and very much in demand in the workforce, as you'll find out. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate that. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Dr. Parra. And okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.